There's a seismic shift happening right now in the NBA landscape, one that's being completely overlooked by the mainstream sports media. While everyone's focused on flashy scoring titles and MVP races, they're missing the fundamental tectonic plates moving beneath their feet. What we witnessed in that Hawks vs. Warriors matchup wasn't just another regular season game, it was a blueprint, a declaration, and a warning all wrapped into 48 minutes of basketball. The Atlanta Hawks, led by their retooled roster, didn't just beat the Golden State Warriors, they exposed a fundamental flaw in how modern contenders are being built, and in doing so, they've made superstars across the league profoundly uncomfortable. Let's break down why this specific game, this specific performance, signals such a dramatic change. The narrative heading in was typical: Stephen Curry's Warriors, the veteran dynasty, versus the upstart Hawks. The expectation was Curry dominance, maybe a Draymond Green defensive masterclass, and a comfortable Warriors win. What unfolded was the exact opposite. From the opening tip, Atlanta operated with a cohesive, selfless energy that Golden State simply couldn't match. It wasn't about one superstar overwhelming another, it was about a system overwhelming individual brilliance. Stephen Curry had his moments, that catch-and-shoot three in the first quarter, the lightning-fast break three-pointer to cut the lead in the third, but they were isolated sparks in a downpour. The Hawks, particularly through players like Jalen Johnson, executed with a pace and purpose that made the Warriors look a step slow, a thought behind. This brings us to the core framework that's emerging: control versus chaos. For a decade, the Warriors have been the masters of controlled chaos. Their motion offense, while appearing frenetic, is built on precise timing, ingrained habits, and the gravitational pull of their generational shooters. What the Hawks presented was a different kind of chaos, one built on youthful athleticism, relentless ball movement, and a complete absence of hierarchy. When Jalen Johnson hits a smooth fadeaway over Steph Curry, then follows it with a high-post assist, it's not just a bucket, it's a statement that your defensive assignments no longer matter. The traditional stop the superstar, stop the team philosophy crumbles when the player taking the tough fadeaway over Jimmy Butler isn't the primary option, but simply the next man in a fluid sequence. This is where the trade discussions, particularly around a player like Trae Young, start to make a terrifying amount of sense for certain franchises. Look at the Hawks' ball movement. The ball didn't stick. It whipped around the perimeter, found the open man in the corner, attacked mismatches without hesitation. Now, imagine plugging a ball-dominant, high-usage superstar into that ecosystem. The rhythm breaks. The spontaneous reads become calculated possessions. The very thing that made Atlanta so potent against Golden State, their unpredictable, egalitarian attack, gets replaced by a predictable high pick-and-roll. The perfect sense of a Trae Young trade isn't about his talent, which is undeniable, but about fit. It's about choosing between a system of organized chaos and the brilliant, isolating chaos of a single maestro. The Hawks' performance suggested they might be leaning toward the former, and that decision sends shockwaves. It tells other superstars that even historic offensive output might be sacrificed for systemic synergy. The evidence was in the third quarter run. Golden State mounted their comeback, as they always do. A Curry three, a defensive stop, the momentum shifting. In years past, that's where experience wins. Veteran teams tighten up, execute their sets, and snuff out the rally. But Atlanta responded with an 11-2 run of their own. It wasn't led by a singular hero taking over, it was a collective surge. A defensive rebound turned into early offense. A drive and kick to a wide-open shooter. A tough, contested floater in the lane to beat the shot clock. This resilience, born from collective confidence rather than reliance on a single closer, is what makes contenders miserable. How do you game plan for 5 potential closers? How do you strategize for a team whose late-game execution isn't a set play for their star, but simply a continuation of their 43-minute philosophy? This principle extends beyond Atlanta. Look at the parallel narrative in that Sacramento versus Houston showdown. Here, you had Russell Westbrook, a former MVP, orchestrating with vintage ferocity, 7 assists, finding cutters, pushing the pace. Yet, the story became Malik Monk's back-to-back threes, the rookie poster dunk. Houston's effort, fueled by Westbrook's double-double energy, was ultimately overwhelmed by Sacramento's broader offensive distribution. It's the same theme, the concentrated fire of a past superstar model versus the distributed scoring of a modern system. Kevin Durant, for all his mid-range mastery, watched a corner pocket three from a role player seal the game. The individual brilliance was there, on both sides, but the systemic depth won the day. Which leads us to the most explosive implication of all, LeBron James and the Lakers. The whispers around the league are growing into a steady rumble. If the model is shifting away from heliocentric superstars and towards fluid, starless systems, where does that leave a franchise built entirely around the orbit of one of the greatest players in history? The Lakers' potential readiness to move on isn't about disrespect, it's about cold, hard calculus. Watching Atlanta dissect Golden State without a traditional alpha, and seeing Sacramento thrive with a committee approach, forces a brutal question: is the era of building a team around a single, aging superstar officially over? The disaster scenario for the Lakers isn't a losing season, it's being stuck between paradigms. Committing fully to LeBron means tailoring every move to maximize his window, which often means veterans on short deals and win-now trades that hollow out the future. Moving toward the Hawks model means prioritizing youth, athleticism, and systemic growth, a path that inherently conflicts with a win-now superstar's timeline. The disaster the Lakers owner might be ready to move on from is the disaster of irrelevance that follows a prolonged period of basketball purgatory, not good enough to win a title, not bad enough to secure transformative draft picks. Atlanta's victory provided a clear, alternative path, and it's one that makes the Lakers' current reality look increasingly archaic. Ultimately, what we're seeing is the natural evolution of basketball strategy. The Warriors' dynasty was the peak of the Superstar Plus system model. They had the ultimate system and the ultimate system-transcendent stars. Teams without Curry, Durant, or LeBron are now taking the next logical step, refining the system to the point where the star becomes optional. They're building rosters where the star is the open man, where clutch performance is a team trait, and where defensive game plans are nightmares because there's no primary option to trap. This is what's making NBA superstars miserable. It's not about talent depreciation, it's about paradigm obsolescence. The very thing that made them superstars, their ability to dominate possessions, to take and make the toughest shots, to be the focal point of every scouting report, is becoming the thing that might make their teams predictable. The Trae Young trade rumors, the LeBron exit whispers, they're not just gossip. They're the early tremors of a league-wide philosophical earthquake. Teams are realizing that in the modern NBA, you can either have a superstar and build your system around him, or you can have a system so potent that it renders the traditional superstar role redundant. The Atlanta Hawks, on a random night in the regular season, didn't just win a basketball game. They showcased the future, and for the old guard of NBA superstars, that future looks deeply, profoundly unsettling.